Shelley made a return visit to Oxford incognito, with Thomas Love Peacock and Charles Claremont, to show Mary around the town, and to see the rooms that he'd once shared with Thomas Jefferson Hogg. Then, during this visit, which Charles Claremont described, Shelley told them of his scientific ideas, of his looking through telescopes at the rings of Saturn, and through microscopes at flies' wings and cheese mites, at the vermicular animalculae in vinegar, protozoan life forms they compared to drowning fairies. Shelley said this was where he'd first wondered how mankind might begin the world again. We visited the very rooms, Claremont said, where the two noted infidels, Shelley and Hogg, pored with the incessant and unwearied application of the alchemist over the certified and natural boundaries of human knowledge. Shelley showed Mary where he'd had rows of galvanic batteries, all sparking, and told her of his friends' excitement at their lightning discharges, and how they'd all queued up for electric shocks. Then he explained his fascination with the story of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods, and he suggested that the story could be modernized if you switched flames for electric sparks. For at Oxford, Shelley would exclaim to Hogg, "What a mighty instrument would electricity be in the hands of him who knew how to wield it." He then bubbled over with his obsession with balloons. "What will not an extraordinary combination of troughs of colossal magnitude, a well-arranged system of hundreds of metallic plates, effect?" And he and Mary became mechanized aeronauts in their heads. Then, during this return visit, Shelley also describes the experiments he'd once conducted with a man he referred to as the alchemist in the attic, a Dr. Lind of Windsor in Berkshire. Shelley refers to this mysterious Dr. Lind, the science teacher and friend of Galvani, by saying, "I owe that man far more than I owe my father." And Shelley would immortalize Dr. Lind as the character of Zonoras, the wise old teacher of science and philosophy, in his poem Athanasi. An old man with hair of silver white, and lips where heavenly smiles would hang and blend with his wise words, and eyes whose arrowy light shone like the reflex of 1,000 mines. Dr. Lind had been the first man in England to hear of the experiments of Dr. Galvani, and Lind would take Shelley under his wing, in order to nurture his scientific curiosity. Together they'd pass charges through dead garden frogs, and watch them jump, as it seemed, back to life. Then Shelley told Mary how very soon afterwards he had treated his sister's chilblains, and he'd cured them with small electric currents. From then on, Mary saw Shelley in a new light. He was her Dr. Galvani, and he became her Prometheus, and soon she'd find herself tempted to recreate her husband as a fictional entity, one that she'd make larger than life, through drawing on dramatic facts such as the sensation that she'd felt herself, stirred by electric jolts, coming from the sensual love she shared with Shelley, which was now giving her a new way of being, and changing her utterly through the belief that she'd joined her soul with his. And Shelley's soul, she believed, to carry such a transformative charge, that she felt that together they could both conquer death, and be touched with a new immortality. Then she'd combine all this with her witnessing the same man demonized by the world, denounced for his having let loose a monster, namely, an atheistical monster in a Christian state. A man even accused of usurping his creator, and a man who was also pilloried for nurturing another unwelcome monster, namely, England's huge underclass, then exploited by employers and treated with more contempt even than animals, common labourers whom fear and hatred would compare to some hydra-headed Caliban. A monster, considered capable of anything, a blood-crazed, conscienceless creature. The working man was thought to be a half-beast, whose hopes Shelley was now misguidedly raising, through identifying with their cause, while Shelley's class saw workers as subhumans, whom it was their duty to suppress, while they would idealize themselves as a Herculean race, with a monarch who was appointed by God. A monarch whose task was to root out such monsters, to suppress all bestial insurgents, half bent on disrupting society's privileges. It was the king's duty to control the mob, to identify every subversive stirring, to suppress the underclass for its own good, to jail the disaffected, to transport them for life, even executing children as young as 10. And while Shelley was spending his small allowance on schemes of political justice, his empathy with outsiders would first make him a class traitor, and then characterize him as diabolical. After this visit to Oxford, a fictional character came to Mary almost fully formed, and when she lost Shelley's child, her unusual creation, who aimed to conquer death, took hold. I saw, with shut eyes, but acute mental vision, I saw the pale student of unhallowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out, and then, on the working of some powerful engine, show signs of life and stir with an uneasy, half-vital motion. In this reverie, Mary recast her husband as a bizarre scientist with an assembly of pauper's limbs that he was reanimating through flashes of lightning. Mary saw Shelley as Victor Frankenstein. Her Frankenstein would draw on aspects of Shelley, in his rebellion against tradition, in his attempting to give life to those who didn't have one, and in his shaping destiny by dispensing with God. Mary had her phantom delving into the power of electricity, a power of equal fascination to Shelley, who saw it as emblematic of the muse's spark that gave man his feelings of divinity. And, just like Shelley, Victor desires to begin the world again, to penetrate the mysteries of nature, and to find the secrets of the philosopher's stone and the elixir of eternal life scientifically. Like Shelley at Oxford, Frankenstein reads Agrippa, Paracelsus, and Albertus Magnus, and, just like Shelley, Frankenstein thinks it's possible to come back to life from the dead. Mary describes Frankenstein doing this much as Shelley had tried to revive corpses through his applying large doses of bottled-up lightning from galvanic jars, and to do this through science and not superstition. In breathing life into Victor Frankenstein, Mary ventriloquizes Shelley, and when Frankenstein bubbles over with enthusiasm, Mary has him talking in Shelley's voice.
Paradise Lost.
"So much has been done," exclaimed the soul of Frankenstein. "More, far more, will I achieve. Treading in the steps already marked, I will pioneer a new way, explore unknown powers, and unfold to the world the deepest mysteries of creation." But, though Frankenstein was destined to become science fiction's greatest archetype, Shelley was setting himself an even greater task than being a model for Mary's novel. For Shelley was to set his heart on electrifying the entire body politic of England, on bringing it back from the dead with his words. Words which spelled out revolution. Though poets of the Victorian establishment, such as the dour Matthew Arnold, would dismiss all Shelley's incantations by describing them as beautiful but ineffectual, Shelley's thought became dynamite to hardcore activists. He was a guiding light to the Chartists. The seed you sow, another reaps. The wealth you find, another keeps. Pirate versions of his Queen Mab were circulated and read aloud at union meetings, whereupon it was considered so inflammatory that Moxon, its printer, was jailed. Ye who suffer woes untold, or to feel or to behold your lost country bought and sold with a price of blood and gold. A moribund body politic was jolted and given a new lease of life, as the electrical charge from Shelley's lines wouldn't be limited to England or to his time.